Very good afternoon to one and all present here. Myself, Dr. V. Leela Vinodhan from Department of Mechanical Engineering. So, my PhD area is basically electronics cooling, and moreover, I have industrial experience, and I'm just going to discuss and then going to share the experience of what I had when I was in the industry. After my PhD, I was in an industry. That industry is basically stir casting furnace. I think most of you, those who are working in the materials, especially in the composite material, with respect to the aluminum and magnesium, you might have well known about this particular technique called stir casting technique. And moreover, the bottom pouring stir casting technique is widely adapted and then used for the past 10 years. So from that background, and then with the association of that particular company, so I would like to share the important aspects and what are all the challenges we had and how we have developed from the normal setup to the one what we have right now. So I think all of you all know about the stir casting technique. Do you require any kind of introduction on that? So let me share the screen. Right. So we might be well known about the casting technique. So we have a mold, and then we'll be pouring the molten metal into it, and then we allow it to solidify, and after some time we will be taking it out of the mold, right? So then in what way the stir casting is going to differ? Then what is the requirement of a stirring? So is that for simply going to mix the material? Otherwise, what the exact requirement of a stirring? Can I have some words from the audience? So we can normally do the melting of the metal and then we can pour it in the mold. Then why the stirring is required? I think many of you have used this particular technique and you might have produced some of the papers on it. So
mix the reinforcement into the molten metal, sir.
Yes, to mix the reinforcement. What is the advantage of having the reinforcement?
Mechanical properties and tribological properties have been improved, sir.
Yes, exactly, sir. Right. So we have certain inherent characteristics of the material. When you are exploring it, otherwise we already know about that particular material. So if you want some property to be for your desired level, then we'll be going for these kind of techniques. Basically, we may have some reinforcement in order to enhance a particular technique. So for example, as our Ashok Kumar sir rightly pointed out, so in order to improve the characteristics and then tribological property of that particular material. Okay, so we all know how the aluminum is dominating the all kind of industries, right? So we may see that aluminum is the one material which is playing a major role. So whenever we consider materials, then this might be the one of the material which we never ever leave it, right? We are going to quote it. Like next to the steel, so aluminum is going to occupy the major areas, right? Because it have vast application, starting from the households to the aeroplanes and ships. We have so much of application with respect to the aluminum. So when you are going with the aluminum material alone, then the desired property, what we are expecting out of that particular material for a particular application, that is not fulfilled by the normal material. So we required some sort of addition to that. So how we are achieving it? We are achieving it with the help of introducing some of the reinforcement material into the parent aluminum material. I hope everyone knows about the difference between a composite and alloy. can, sorry to ask this a basic question, but it will be interactive when some of the audience can give the answer for that. So otherwise it will be one-side lecture. So I don't want to happen in that way. So since you are all having very good knowledge in this particular area, I just wanted to have the interaction from the audience. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, tell the answer, sir. You want to tell.
Sir, for alloy, there will be in alloy material.
Sir, sorry to disturb you. Is it, sir? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes, sir. Yes,
hello?
sir.
So is the slide is still casting itself, or anything changes? Because we can't see any change here.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. It is still in the casting. I've not changed anything in the slide.
Fine. So, sorry, sir. Sorry,
Yes,
sir.
yes. Thank you, sir.
If you say alloy, the
Yes,
alloy
sir.
materials that will be also on a molten condition, sir. It will be indigo alloy. Whereas when we say composite, the reinforcement which you are adding, it will not be melted. It will be just seating on the grain boundaries of your aluminum and that alloy which you have been mixing. Maybe I think I may correct or no.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are exactly correct, sir. So, with respect to the alloy, it will be completely mixed with that particular material. Like we have the chemical bonding between the parent material and the reinforcement, otherwise whatever material you have, right, sir? So maybe I can put it in a basic sense. It is like, see, you take a material, aluminum, and then you take zinc. So you mix it both together, and if you don't see the zinc or aluminum separately, then we can say it as alloy, right, sir? So if you don't see any kind of a differentiation in the material like aluminum or zinc, then we can say it is a alloy. So with respect to the composite material, if we see, if you add copper to aluminum, the copper will stay as copper. There won't be any kind of dispersion, right, sir? So this copper material will act as a copper material. So it will not change. It will not undergo any kind of a process when you add it to the aluminum. So this will stay as a aluminum. Like if you add pebbles to the water, so pebbles will be pebbles. Correct, sir? It will not something dissolute into the water. If you add sugar into water, then what happens? So it completely mixes with the water, and you cannot differentiate the water and the sugar. Sir, is that fine, sir? Yes, I hope. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can we say that is alloy is in microscopic level, while your composite is in basically macroscopic level, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And moreover, if you add the pebbles, small pebbles or sand particles to the water, then what happens? The sand particles will stay as such. You can still easily differentiate the sand particle and the water. So similarly, in the case of aluminum, if we are, for example, let us consider that we are adding boron carbide. So this boron carbide grains will be as such. It won't change. It will be boron carbide only. But how this is going to make the difference in the result, in the end material, in the cast material, what we are going to have it at the end is, see, the position where this boron carbide occupies in that whole material, that is going to determine the property change of that particular material. Am I right, sir? So for example, let us have, if you have aluminum shaft or a length of 15 centimeter and the diameter of 10 centimeter. So if you have the same dimension, but you have some percentage of boron carbide added to the aluminum, then what happens? So definitely, instead of aluminum in that particular place, this boron carbide is going to occupy the place instead of aluminum in this dimension. So this is going to play a major role, and out of this is going to make the property change. right, sir? So the requirement of the stir casting, so we can do the casting as such, but in order to distribute the boron carbide, for example, only I'm just taking it the boron carbide. You may use any kind of reinforcement into it, into like silicon carbide. You can use. Otherwise, you can use any kind of metal oxides. You can use the n number of reinforcement. It depends what kind of characters we are expecting out of that particular material. So it depends. So in this simple case, I'm just taking the boron carbide for example. So if we are including the boron carbide, this boron carbide is going to occupy the some of the places of the aluminum. So this is at the end going to give us a change in the property. Like one of our friend said, it may have an improved property in tribology. Otherwise, it may increase the tensile strength or compression strength. Otherwise, it might give you a different wear resistance. So this everything, whatever I have said so far, is going to be accomplished with the help of a stir casting technique. Right. So there is an important requirement of a bottom pouring stir casting setup when you compare to the normal stir casting. See, stirring is going to happen. You can do it manually or mechanically. Right, sir? Even we can, I have seen a lot of setup in the previous days. People have done the same experiment with the help of a drilling machine with an extended stirrer, and they used to stir the molten material by adding the reinforcement to it, and then they will pour it into the mold. After quite a bit of stirring for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it depends, they pour it into the mold. So this is how they have did it in the earlier period. So what happens, what is the disadvantage of doing in such case is the stirring won't be proper. The boron carbide occupies, otherwise it settles down in one of the area instead of it is dispersed, otherwise it is occupying the uniform space of the dimension. So that is the issue. So this can be overcome by bottom pouring setup. I hope the setup is available for everyone, right, sir? Is it visible, sir?
Yes, yes, it's visible.
Yes, thank you, sir. So this is the bottom pouring type stir casting furnace. So this is basically for aluminum. So similar kind of a setup also you can use it for magnesium. The problem with the magnesium is magnesium generally catches fire at the normal atmosphere. So you have to do it in the inert atmosphere. If you just expose the magnesium to the normal atmospheric air, then it will just burn. Okay, and then it will turn into ashes. So we have to do it with a more safety, and then we have to do it with a more caution when you are doing with the magnesium. So with respect to aluminum, no need to worry about anything. We can straight away include the material ingots into the furnace, and then we can allow it for 1 hour, or it depends, 1 hour or even 45 minutes also. It will reaches the molten state. After that, you can add the reinforcement, whatever reinforcement if you want to add. So you can do it, and then stir it for quite a bit of a time. It actually varies, depends on the reinforcement. It varies with respect to the stirring. So you will be choosing a particular RPM, and then we allow the stirrer to stir the aluminum material and the reinforcement material. Just a minute. So, point. Yes. Hope. This is the furnace where you have a limited volume of crucible. Basically, it is SS304. Otherwise, you can use another material also, 310E. So it depends on the temperature, how much temperature that we are going to go to the maximum. So if you are going to limit for 700 or 750 degrees Celsius, then SS is more than enough. So SS crucible you will be having, so that it may have a volume of 1.5 kg or 2 kg. The furnace is basically based on how much volume that we are going to take it inside the crucible. So you load the ingots, you weigh the ingots, otherwise the raw material, into the pieces, and then you just add it to the furnace, and then you allow it to melt down. And basically you can set the temperature, maybe 10 degrees Celsius for 10 seconds. Otherwise you can set it for 50 degrees Celsius for 10 seconds. It depends. So generally the prescribed rate of increase of a temperature is basically, it is controlled by a PID. So we can set it like 10 degrees Celsius for 10 seconds. Otherwise, basically a 10 degrees Celsius for a minute also we can do. So it depends, because some of the stir casting required a slow heating rate. Then only it will give a good result. So it depends. You can have it in that way or in a different manner. So in general cases, what we used to do in our industry is basically we will allow it for 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, it will be in a form of molten material. Then we will introduce the reinforcement. So this particular small chamber is also a mini furnace where you can preheat the reinforcement to a particular temperature. Can I know why we required to preheat the reinforcement?
Remove the moisture present on the reinforcement particles.
Yes, sir, exactly. And moreover, the temperature of the reinforcement varies with respect to the temperature, varies with respect to the material and what kind of a temperature we are going to keep it for that particular material. So it is not a fixed parameter. It varies with the reinforcement. For example, I'm just taking a boron carbide, so we will be preheating for 200 degrees Celsius. So if you have some other carbon material, then we can go more than that also, for 300, 400 degrees Celsius also. Right? So we are supposed to take the moisture out, and moreover, certain reinforcement will required to preheat it for a particular temperature so that it will mix to the aluminum properly. So once we allow the reinforcement through this particular chamber, otherwise we can call it as a mini furnace, for a particular time, we can keep it, maintain the reinforcement for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and you can keep this particular furnace at 300 degrees Celsius or maximum 400 degrees Celsius. Even 800 degrees Celsius preheating furnace is also available. That is depends on the requirement of the, for that particular research. What kind of material they are going to use, accordingly they can choose. So once we allow the reinforcement into the molten material, molten aluminum in this case, so we used to set the temperature of the furnace nearly around 750 degrees Celsius. So the aluminum will melt at 660 degrees Celsius, but most of the cases 700 degree or 750 degree is the set temperature of the furnace. So if you set the furnace for 750 degrees Celsius, then the inner temperature of the furnace will reach around 730 or 735. So it depends on how long you are going to keep that particular temperature. See, if we are taking it for the first time, it may require some additional time to reach that particular temperature. If you are yes. Okay, right. So if you are going to take it for a third casting or a second casting, then you don't require to spend that much of time for the aluminum to get into the molten state, right? Okay. Once we have introduced the reinforcement into this aluminum, then we will be introducing the stirrer at a particular RPM. So, right. So general RPM range, what most of the researchers have used is from 350 to the 550. So this is a range where most of the researchers have obtained a optimized characteristics of the material. So if you go beyond that, then we may face some sort of characteristic change, so which is not required by us. So RPM is also one of the important criteria, one of the parameter. So certain parameters are there. I will list out the parameters in which and all we have to consider, and why optimization is required in this particular technique. It is not a technique where you can say straight away about like you can fix this RPM and then you can fix this percentage of reinforcement and then you can use this kind of aluminum series. We cannot fix in that way. Definitely we are supposed to take at least 4 or 5 casting, then only we will get to know what kind of parameters are exactly fit for that particular composite material. So you may have 2 reinforcement or 3 reinforcement, that is a different issue. But we required a minimum of 4 to 5 casting. This is from our experience. So you cannot straight away go and have the success in this kind of a technique. So that we have to completely understand and then we have to accept. So you may say that, sir, you can do the casting at this RPM and then you keep the aluminum for 10 minutes in the molten state or 20 minutes in the molten state. We may not say that the exact outcome, what we are going to get as a cast, that might give you the desired output or not. So that have to be a series of tests are there. You have to do that, and then only we can come to a conclusion that these parameters are at the optimum level for this kind of a combination. So first one is the furnace temperature and how long we are going to keep that aluminum in that molten state, and at what RPM that we are going to introduce the reinforcement, and how we are going to do the pouring. So in this particular bottom pouring technique, the importance of the bottom pouring technique is we will be pouring the molten material by keeping the stirrer on. So the stirrer on, what it will do is it will force the reinforcement and the molten material all together to flow through the cast. So if you simply open the bottom pouring without switching on the stirrer, then what happens is there is a chance, and moreover this is widely accepted and observed by the researchers, that when you allow the molten material to settle down, what happens is this reinforcement will simply get into the bottom, because the density of the reinforcement material may be less than the aluminum or greater than the aluminum. So it depends. In most of the cases, the density of the reinforcement is greater than the aluminum. What happens when you are introducing into the molten state is this will tend to settle down at the bottom. It will always be at the bottom. So we are not allowing it to settle down at the bottom by the stirrer. So once you open the bottom pouring, what happens is the reinforcement which is at the bottom, it will go and accumulate it in one of the area, instead of having the reinforcement uniformly distributed in the cast. It will go and settle in any one of the area. To avoid that, if you keep the stirrer on, that will allow the reinforcement to get uniformly distributed in the molten material. So through this, we can achieve a more uniform distribution of the reinforcement in the cast. So we have different type of cast. So along with this, we have different attachments. Like we have the gravitational casting, and then centrifugal casting, and then extrusion type, and then squeeze casting. So we have different types of setups. So some of the castings, you get the desired output by gravitational method itself. But in most of the cases, the gravitational method is not preferred. Maybe it is okay for the UG project. But if you are going to a PhD project or a post-graduation level project, then the gravitational stir casting, will not do the purpose. So the required characteristics, what we are expecting from the casting and the introduction of the reinforcement, that may not be achieved in that particular case. So we required to go for the other technique like squeeze casting. So in my experience, the squeeze casting has given a very good improvement in terms of all kind of aspects like wear, and then the strength is improved a lot, and then the integrity of that material when you are going to the application, if you do the machining and all. So the squeeze casting gives the desired output, and moreover it will avoid the problem of cavitation inside the casting. See, one of the biggest problem with respect to this particular technique is the cavitation. So when you are pouring, it will solidifies within a second. It won't take much of it. Within a second, it will get solidified, and due to that, what happens is that there will be a lot of blowholes. So in order to avoid that, if you switch to the squeeze casting, so as soon as you pour the material into the cast, if you squeeze it at a particular force, for example, you can consider a 40 bar pressure or 50 bar pressure, or even people are going with 100 bar pressure. So if you apply that kind of a force, then the problem of these kind of cavities, small cavities, and then this blowholes will be rectified. Right. I would like to hear from the audience regarding the stir casting, what I have explained right now. Any doubt or any clarifications? Sir, am I audible, sir? Any doubt on this, sir?
Audible, sir. You are audible.
Yes, sir. Any doubt on this, sir?
Sir, actually, I had doubt related to nanoparticles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Casting machines. Still, there is some whether we are doing this clearer, but there are still agglomerations of this nanoparticle during this casting. So, what can we do for that case?
Yes, sir. So, with respect to nanoparticle, see, it all depends on how we are treating the nanoparticle. See, when we are disposing the nanoparticle in a liquid, so in general liquid, so we will be doing some sort of surface chemistry. So we will add some sort of a surfactants to it. So in the normal case, correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, otherwise we will adjust the pH level so that in order to keep that particular surface, which is not promoting the agglomeration. So that's what we do normally. But in this case, what happens is like, since we are introducing into the molten material, so we have to completely study about the compatibility of the nanomaterial with the aluminum or whatever parent material you are going to introduce it. So we need to.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Still, there is some wettability issue in some cases also, but that is in case of micron particle also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Exactly, sir. So in order to avoid the wettability, that's why we generally used to introduce the magnesium, a small percentage of magnesium, and then zinc into the aluminum casting.
Correct, sir. Thank you.
So we have to check the compatibility of the nanoparticle with the aluminum. See, it is not, one of the major issues with the stir casting is like, so from my experience, I'm telling that whatever amount of a nanoparticle or microparticle that you are introducing, so we may not make sure whether all the reinforcement is adhered to the casting or not, whether all the reinforcement what we have introduced, whether that particular percentage is completely into the casting or not. I think everyone will accept this. The percentage what we are introducing into the casting, that may not be equal to the percentage what you have it in the casting. Am I right, sir?
Correct, sir. Correct. Thank you, sir.
Because some part of the reinforcement will be settled inside the furnace. It may be adhered to the surface of the furnace. The furnace wall, if you check after taking the casting, some sort of material will be attached to it. So the percentage of reinforcement what we are introducing into the casting, we have to confirm it with the help of a XRF. So what I will suggest is, see, in most of the reports, how they are reporting in the papers, in the research articles, it is like they are reporting the exact percentage what they are introducing into the casting. They are not considering about the percentage which is settled down inside the furnace. There might be some sort of a percentage, like for example, at least 2% is lost. For example, if you are introducing 100 grams of boron carbide, at least 2 grams will be lost somewhere. It might be attached to the stirrer. Stirrer blade is there, right, sir? So it may be get attached to it. It will be settled on the bottom. Otherwise, it will be. You can see some of the things will stick into the wall of the furnace. When you are doing the cleaning after the casting, every time what we used to do is we will do the cleaning. Once one particular combination of a casting is done, we will do the cleaning. So what we will do is we have to maintain the exact parameters. Only then you will achieve all the material will be added to the casting. Otherwise, you will get some sort of a material which is settled down inside the furnace itself. So from my experience, some of the UG projects, they used to come and approach us for taking the casting. See, for them, it is only one casting is enough in order to finish their project. But the issue is the combination of material, what they are bringing to us, they have to be confirmed and they have to do the analysis completely in such a way that they have to give us the optimum condition. See, for some material, you can fix 400 RPM. At that RPM, if you mix it for 5 minutes, then you will get all kind of a material which is infused in the casting. If you choose some other material, then for that you may require 500 RPM for which has to be stirred for 10 minutes for that material. Then only you can have the maximum a reinforced material which is added to the particular material. So that's why I said we have to definitely do at least 4 or 5 casting in order to optimize the parameters. What temperature and then what time, how much time that we have to stir it. There are certain reinforcement where the complete nature of the reinforcement itself changes when you prolong the stirring. If you stir it for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, the nature of that particular material, because we are keeping at some temperature, right, sir? So the reinforcement material changes its characteristics when you expose it for a longer time in this particular temperature window. So we have to know those things also. So the problem with the UG projects is basically like they won't consider these aspects. They straight away come and approach us to take a casting. So from my experience, I prefer we have to consider all kind of aspects as well as the parameters, how the material will behave in that particular temperature and what else will change. If instead of 10 minutes, if you raise it for 20 minutes, then what happens to that particular material? Whether it is going to degrade from its property, otherwise if any kind of a changes it is going to make in the result. So those things we have to completely study, and then we have to come up with a range of parameters. Like we can try it from this range to this range, or this time to this time, we can try for direct.
Professor, sorry for
yes,
the
sir?
interruption.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How the stirrer material is being designed, and how many casting it will be useful, because we are dealing with hot molten metal and also with
Yes.
some ceramic reinforcement.
Yes.
It will normally have very high hardness, no?
Yes,
So
sir.
what is the life of the stirrer material?
Yes, sir. If we consider the stirrer blade, sir, stirrer blade will be given a coating. Basically, it's a carbon coating. Okay, sir. Before introduced into the molten material, that stirrer blade is covered with a carbon coating. So, which will protect the stirrer blade material from this molten material. Since it is exposed to the higher temperature, certain abrasive materials are there. The reinforcement material, certain abrasive materials are there. If you introduce that abrasive material and then if you perform the stirring, then what happens is like this will etch the material. The stirrer blade material is there, right? So
Yes, yes.
the carbide material, otherwise abrasive reinforcement, what we are introducing into the aluminum, if you run the stirrer for a more time, this will etch the stirrer blade material, and that also will be there in the casting. So the life of the stirrer blade depends on the what kind of a reinforcement that we are using. So if you use abrasive material of a higher number, then the stirrer blade material will definitely, the material will get eroded, and then the blade material itself, it will be it will lose the material. Definitely, sir.
Sir, but in our case, we have already
Yes.
casting
Yes.
set up in our university.
Yes.
So actually, the supplier has supplied the informal materials, this blade.
Sir, sir, your voice is not clear, sir. A lot of disturbance.
Okay. Actually, sir, I am saying in our setup, the
Yes, sir.
supplier has supplied the inconel materials, blades, and the rod that is dipped into the molten material. So I
Yes.
think so that is more than sufficient, because inconel materials has the melting temperature around 2500 above.
Okay.
So I think so that is also sufficient for that aluminum casting. Is it so?
Sir, we can go with the ceramic material also, sir. We can go with the ceramic material, which is having a higher temperature resistance.
Right.
So, but the problem is the structural integrity of the blade material. See, what happens is like when we are stirring at a higher RPM, so this will get a crack and then it will loosen up.
Okay.
So we have to consider that aspects also.
Right, sir.
So see, that's why in this particular setup, the blade is given as a attachable and detachable material. It is not a fixed one. So you can change the blade in such a way according to the reinforcement what you are using. So my suggestion is we have to have different blade material. We can have it as in terms of SS, and then we can give the coating, carbon coating at the time of casting. So that's what other researchers are doing so far. So we can go for the ceramic material and the inconel material. The problem is the cost of the blade. So we have to take that also into consideration. Am I right, sir? Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
But the thing is,
Yes, sir.
we experienced once, maybe 2 or 3 casting. We usually observed that the steering blade was eroded because of the slurry action.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is, we are having a hot molten metal with the ceramic particles, no reinforcement.
Yes.
So because of that slurry action it creates, so because of that there were erosion, and that
Yes,
was the reason
yes.
why I'm intended to ask this question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that is the common problem. Most of them will come across. in
Yes,
this
sir.
particular in this particular stir casting, that problem is there, sir. So
Yes.
if we switch to the ceramic blade or inconel blade, whatever I've suggested, then we can avoid it. But the problem is the cost.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
That cost of the blade will be something very huge, pretty high than what we are doing.
Mhm.
That is the issue.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And one more thing I would like to share from my experience is like the position of the steering blade. So that means how depth we are steering. So at what depth we are keeping the steerer, because that also plays a major role. See, when you are steering at the top, at the first quarter at the top, then that will not solve the purpose. Whenever we are adding the reinforcement, the steering should be in such a way that it should form a complete whirl. The sprilling action should be there. So it is not something you are steering at a one particular depth, and if that particular sprilling action is not covering the entire area, then it is not going to solve our purpose. So that is another important parameter where we have to concentrate whenever we are going with the stir casting furnace. At what depth we are going to keep the stirrer blade, and when we are going to introduce a reinforcement. That is very, very important, sir. From my experience, I have done for both kind of settings, like one with the stirrer blade dipped just above the bottom. I have kept something around 1 centimeter from the bottom. That gives us the better result when compared to the stirring of the blade at the depth of some 10 or 15 centimeter from the bottom. Sir, is that am I audible, sir? Is that fine? Whether any one of you had such kind of experience, you can share that, sir, so that others also will get benefited.
Sir, I'm Ram Gopal Reddy from Andhra Pradesh.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
RVR and JS College of Engineering. Actually, so when you are reinforcing, so you're some lightweight material such as CNT type
Yes.
of, so your particles. What happens means, so there is a problem with floating.
Yes.
Okay, when you are so you are stirring, what happens means all the particles is so you are moving up.
Yes.
So it is not possible. So you are to get the uniform distribution. So is it possible with your equipment so to get the uniform distribution in that case?
Yes, sir. That's what I said. The sprilling action of the molten material, and then when you are introducing the reinforcement, it plays a major role. See, yes, sir, so what you have pointed out is exactly correct, sir. Right. So the lower density material or lightweight material tend to float on the top. So it will mix with the sludge, and then it will not get introduced into the cast at all. We may think that we have introduced the reinforcement, but at the end, what happens is you will be getting very meager amount of the reinforcement in the final casting. So that's why I said, when you are introducing the reinforcement, you should have a complete swirling motion of the molten material. So that will avoid this kind of a problem. And moreover, you have to switch on the stirrer when you are pouring the material. You should not switch off the stirrer. That should be. Yes, sir.
Sorry for the interruption.
Yes,
Added
sir.
to this discussion, actually,
Yes.
light materials, as we discussed, the ash kind of reinforcements we tried many times.
Yes.
So the procedure, what you said, we actually followed. The stirring
Okay.
action was continuous until the pouring of the molten metal.
Okay.
But what happens? No, the pouring happened. At the end, the dry powder will float on the top of the casting. So the stirring action will not have a complete control over the mixing of the reinforcement like fly ash.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Intensity
Then
is
it is.
really low.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Exactly, sir. What you have said is right, sir. That's why I said we have to find out the surface chemistry of the material what we are introducing into the aluminum or whatever material it may be. We have to study and we should know the complete control of the surface interaction, how it is going to interact with the aluminum. Correct, sir?
Exactly.
So the procedure what I have told is that is going to help you to get a uniform distribution. I am not saying that otherwise. I am not claiming that this is the only way for achieving the uniform distribution. So this will help you to get the uniform distribution, provided if you know the all basics of the reinforcement material and how it is going to interact with the aluminum. If you know exactly everything, then this is going to help you in achieving the uniform distribution. Okay, sir?
Exactly.
Exactly, sir. And that's what I'm not claiming that this is going to give you. Going to give you the uniform distribution for all kind of material. That we have to completely study before introducing. We have to completely study about the reinforcement material, and this procedure will fetch you the more uniform distribution of the material. So similar kind of a problem we have with the nanoparticles, sir. Whenever we add the nanoparticle in this kind of a technique, what problem we have is like people don't understand, and then they will not completely study about the surface chemistry of the material. Instead, they will simply introducing the material into it. And moreover, I have cases where people have wasted so much of money, like procuring the nanoparticle from the Sigma Aldrich and some other agent. So they will be buying it for 10 gram of 10,000 rupees and then 15,000 rupees. And they will be introducing into the aluminum just blindly. They don't know what kind of a predetermined temperature they have to maintain, what kind of a pre-processing that they have to do before introducing into the aluminum. Without knowing that, please, I'm very sorry to say this, there are few cases because UG students, they spent a lot of money on it, and without that particular knowledge, they will be simply going for the casting. The problem is, if you are not knowing exactly what happens to the material when you add it to the aluminum or whatever or magnesium, without knowing that, if you simply try out in the casting, that will not going to give you the result. Maybe you can get the success in 20 in 1. Maybe out of 20 casting, you may, out of luck, you can get one casting, a better casting. Maybe out of luck, we can get the nanoparticle which is suitable for this kind of technique or the material what we are going to use. For example, aluminum. Right, sir? So we have to completely study that. That has to be done exhaustively. And then we have to know exactly what it is going to happen at what temperature and how this is going to behave. With that knowledge only, we have to introduce it in the casting. Without that, we will be definitely facing these kind of problems. So the machine, what is going to do is like, it is going to perform the stirring, otherwise it will maintain the temperature. Correct, sir? If you switch it on for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, it will be doing its job. But we have to decide what kind of a temperature we have to keep, whether we have to take the aluminum completely to the molten material at one stretch. Otherwise, we can have it intermediate, like we can take the molten material at a single step and then allow it to cool down for some 400 degrees Celsius or 300 degrees Celsius and again do the melting. Then introduce the reinforcement. Else, there are techniques where people are tried, and then a lot of papers are available in that particular topic. Like after introducing the reinforcement, they allow the material to cool down. Like they will allow it to solidify, semi-solid. They will take it into semi-solid state. Again, they will take it to the molten state, then they will do the stirring, and then they will pour it. And we observed a different output when we are following this kind of a procedure. And moreover, again, I am telling you, we have to know the exact characteristics of the material, what we are introducing into the casting. Without that, I'm very sorry to say that we may get out of luck, we may get a good casting. Otherwise, it is a complete waste of time and money. Sir, am I audible? So whether I have given the answer for that question, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, any questions on this, sir?
Sir, actually, I have one more silly question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Nothing is silly question, sir. You can ask, sir.
Actually, that what I am facing, that is because when we do this stir casting, so actually after this, when we open this bottom pouring, right? So some
Yes.
material is basically left inside this crucible.
Yes.
So, okay, at that time, because we cannot remove that material at a very high temperature from the crucible, right? But after some time, when it will become solidification, so it is very difficult to remove that material. Although we have a other solution, that is we can apply this boron nitride solution, but that is very costly. So
Yes.
is there any other option that we can reduce, we can remove this material without any boron nitride solution and other thing?
Yes, sir. So actually what we used to do in our company is like, we used to remove all kind of debris from the crucible in the hot condition itself.
Okay.
So that is the only way in order to keep our crucible for a longer time, sir, because that only will take our crucible for a higher number of castings.
Yes, sir.
So if you maintain the crucible, the main important point, what we will suggest is like, we have to do the cleaning properly.
Okay. That's
For
why, because
every casting.
yes, sir.
Yes.
So
For every casting, we have to do the cleaning properly. It should be pakka. We should not leave any kind of debris inside the crucible, because that is going to cost us a lot.
but because sir, at that is a high temperature around 700 degrees Celsius, so
Yes,
that
sir.
is very difficult to remove all this material from this crucible. So what we do, we have did that after solidification. Normally we are applying in this boron nitride solutions, but that is very costly. So each
Yes,
and
sir, yes,
every
sir.
time when we apply, so that will cost very too much. So that's why I'm asking, is there any other options that we can remove that all material without any boron nitride solution?
No, sir. Actually, sir, the only way is to do is like, as soon as you taken the cast, you have to wear your gloves, thermal gloves, and then with the help of the scoop, we have to take all the debris out of the crucible, sir. I think they would have provided you a scoop and then a rod.
Yes, sir. They have provided us the scoop as well as
yes.
but
So
that
we
is-
have
that is-
yes, sir. With the help of that, we have to completely do it, sir, because we take utmost caution in cleaning this. Because I personally have took nearly around some 75 to 80 castings in one particular mission itself.
Yes, sir.
With one particular crucible itself, without changing it in the industry, we have took around 75 to 80, and moreover, still it is there. That is possible because of the cleaning process.
Okay. And sir, what is the difference between this squeeze and vacuum casting? Is there any much difference?
Yes, sir. Exactly. There are a lot of difference between the vacuum casting and the squeeze casting, sir. Sir, vacuum casting is not a completely vacuum, to be exact. Okay, sir. So the principle is basically, at the time of pouring, we will be sucking the air. So what we are doing is like, instead of maintaining the complete vacuum, What we are going to do is like at the time of pouring, for quite a bit of a time, we are going to take all the thing which is in that particular space.
That's why I'm asking, because we are not able to maintain the proper vacuum. Although it is known as vacuum casting, but we are not able to proper maintain. That's why I'm asking. Is there any much difference? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. With the squeeze casting, you said about squeeze casting, like, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Sir. So in the vacuum, what we are trying to do is like we are simply taking away the air, atmospheric air in that particular the mold. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes,
so
sir,
in that mold, whatever air is present inside the mold, we are just going to suck that air at the time of pouring, so that we are making sure that nothing is left much inside the mold.
Okay.
So in terms of squeeze casting, what we are trying to do is like as soon as you pour the material into the mold, we will be applying the force.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
So this amount of force what we are applying is going to remove the cavities, small cavities, because of this air gap. Otherwise, at the time of pouring itself, we will have some kind of a blowholes. Not blowholes. Yeah, I will not say it as a blowhole. It is a cavity, small cavity.
Correct, sir.
So
correct.
That will be completely eradicated in the squeeze casting. From our experience, it is. We have seen, sir. Yes. Even in the sound itself, you can get a clear notification. If you drop the material, cast of the material, what you have got from the vacuum casting and then squeeze casting, that itself will give you the much improvement in the sound itself. We can identify with the sound itself.
Correct, sir. Yes, we have seen in the case of this squeeze casting.
Yes. If you drop the material, what you have take it from vacuum casting, that will give you a different sound. That is only because of the cavities present in that particular casting. So if you drop the squeeze, then the sound will be completely different. So definitely we have a lot of improvement if you go towards the squeeze casting. Yes, sir. Yes. Okay. So I think I have addressed some important key aspects of the stir casting furnace with respect to the aluminum. Right, sir? Right. So when we move on to the magnesium, see, the problem with the magnesium is like, so one, we have to maintain it at an inert atmosphere. So for that, we are supplying argon and SF6 gas in a particular composition. So in order to keep that magnesium in inert atmosphere, we will be supplying the argon and then SF6. SF6 is basically what you can find it in the fire extinguisher. So in order to have a safe mixing and then to do the operation, we are supplying it. And you can still do it without SF6 also. So there are so many research articles where they are without using the SF6 also, they have done the stir casting for magnesium. But the problem what I have faced in the magnesium is basically you cannot keep on for a prolonged time. See, you cannot extend the time. So basically for magnesium, if you are going with the magnesium, you have to complete it within a stipulated time. Otherwise the magnesium will vaporize and this will go away. The amount of magnesium what you are having inside the crucible will reduce over the time. So whenever you are going for a magnesium stir casting, please try to do it within that stipulated time. Don't go beyond it. Even though you are maintaining at an inert atmosphere, if you have it for a longer time inside the crucible, then that will reduce the amount of magnesium inside the crucible. That is for sure. So I request everyone to maintain the magnesium inside the crucible for quite a bit of time. Within that time, as soon as you add the reinforcement into the magnesium material, allow the material to pour down and then take the casting. The privilege of having more time with the aluminum is not available for the magnesium. That we have to be very careful. And the advantage of a magnesium is it is lower the density of the magnesium is lower than the aluminum. And moreover, with the help of the reinforcement, what kind of a reinforcement that we are going to add with the magnesium, the strength and the property what you are achieving with the aluminum, that can be achieved in the magnesium itself. So the advantage of going to the magnesium is we can have the same property even lighter than the aluminum. The aluminum is the replacement for SS material and ferrous material. And we already know about the advantage of aluminum. It is light in weight and we have more strength, the same kind of a strength as like that of a ferrous material. And then this magnesium material is lighter than the aluminum, and then we can achieve same amount of properties and then same amount of strength from the magnesium material. That is the advantage for going to the magnesium material. And one important point that we have to remember when we are going to magnesium is the time. How much time we are going to maintain the material inside the furnace, and what is the reinforcement that we are going to add to it. So that we have to be very careful. So apart from that, doing the magnesium casting and all, it's very similar to that of the aluminum casting. And moreover, when you are going for magnesium casting, as long as you keep it inside the furnace, the furnace temperature also will increase. Even though if you are trying to keep the furnace temperature at 850 degrees Celsius or 900 degrees Celsius, the problem is that will also increases further. As long as you keep the magnesium inside the furnace, that also going to add some of the heat to the furnace. Because the reinforcement, what you are going to add to the magnesium, in certain times what happens is it will have an exothermic reaction. So that will going to give you the additional heat. So in those cases, we have to maintain it. We may wonder in certain times when we are doing the casting, what happens is like we will be maintaining the furnace at a particular temperature. When we introduce these reinforcement, the temperature of the furnace will increase. So we should account for those kind of changes. And then we have to proceed the casting. Is that okay, sir?
Okay, sir, please carry on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this setup, what is shown here, is basically for the aluminum. It's an aluminum stir casting furnace. So magnesium stir casting furnace and aluminum can be done in the same setup. But the problem is we need to have additional setups like we have the cylinders, argon cylinder and SF6 cylinder, and then provision for controlling the gas flow and how well we are going to maintain the gas flow. Even there are research articles which they have changed this amount of mass flow rate of the gas, and then they have checked the casting. So there are certain variation in the results. So you can try in that aspect also. See, generally, whatever parameters, otherwise whatever conditions that we are going to have it when we are doing the casting, we have to consider all the aspects, and then we have to take those changes into the account, and then we have to optimize the parameters. So maybe we can follow a design of experiment before taking the casting. Otherwise, we can try some 2 or 3 castings for that particular combination. We can vary the RPM and then the time. What is the time that we are going to mix, and then what is the temperature, preheating temperature, how we are going to treat the reinforcement. That is a major role. As long as we have experienced, so the pre-treatment of the reinforcement, preheating of the reinforcement is not only for taking out the moisture. So we can still do some sort of heat treatment to the reinforcing material so that we can achieve a better result. So we have to concentrate more on that also. What we are generally using is like we will maintain some 150 degrees Celsius in order to remove the water content or moisture content in that particular reinforcement. We may think that we have taken it to a dry condition, but we also explore in those areas if you are keeping the reinforcement at a higher temperature, like 500 degrees Celsius or 550 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, even if you are keep it for 1 hour and then introduce that into the stir casting, then that is definitely going to give us a different result. So we have already, there are so many papers which have touched upon the parameters what we have discussed today. So you can try in this aspects also. There are a lot of scope for this. That's all from my side, sir. If you have any questions, you can ask, sir. And one more to add upon to this particular technique is, so what we generally used to have is like we will have the casting, we take the casting and then we will pre-treat it. So you can maintain it for a particular 400 degrees Celsius or 500 degrees Celsius in the furnace, especially in the argon atmosphere or whatever gas you can have. So that is also going to give you a different result, not only the casting. So after that also you can go for pre-treating and then you can do the heat treatment. So that is also going to fetch us a different properties. That is also there. And one more is like rolling is there. So instead of going it for machining and then taking the casting and then you're reducing it, instead of that, we can directly do the rolling. So that kind of a setup is also there. You can, most of us would have tried with the casting, normal setup. We used to take a cylindrical one, otherwise a square shape, a square cylinder, like that we used to generally take, and then we will subject it into a lot of tests like a tensile test, and we will do the machining and we will do the other test. So instead of that, you can try in rolling also. At the time of pouring, you can make such kind of a setup and then you can try to roll it as some thickness. So that will also open-ended, and then you can try on that particular research area and then you can come up with a setup, and then if you approach any of the suppliers, then they will make it for you.
Sir, may I, sir? May I?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Sir, rolling is after solidification of that particular material or before that? But I'm not getting your point that about rolling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, what I'm suggesting is like, sir, at the time of pouring, it is not going to give us any kind of time, right? So it is going to give us only a few seconds, maybe 2 seconds or 3 seconds. As soon as you get the material out of the furnace, you subject it to pour into a roller. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is like you have a setup, a funnel kind of a setup, and then from that it is going to a roller, a cylindrical roller, so that you will get a certain thickness.
Okay, sir.
So that will give you a different property, sir. That is the why I'm suggesting is like we have almost tried all kind of combinations. So again and again, it will be the same kind of a work. So you won't get any kind of a novel work on that. Correct, so if you try this kind of a methodology or this kind of a approach, then that will going to add a greater value for your research article.
Very nice, sir.
So any questions, sir? Sir, any suggestions? If you have any corrections in my opinion or whatever argument that I have made, otherwise not, I should not say it as an argument. Whatever experience I had, I just shared that experience to you. If you want any kind of a correction or if you have any suggestions, please do tell it in this forum so that it will be useful for all. So I also get to know about the technique, or if you have any suggestions, we can take it to the next level. So any suggestions, sir? Any one of you, please give a feedback.
Sir, feedback is that it is a very nice, informative session, sir. Really, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Yes, sir. It is very informative.
Yes, sir. And then with that, I thank every one of you who have joined in this particular session, and thanks a lot for the organizers and the audience, those who have patiently listened and to me. And then I really like the session since it is interactive, so it is not like a normal lecture. So I thank each and every one of you who have joined for this particular session, sir.